Let's talk about Canada, America's polite upstairs neighbor, famous for maple syrup, hockey, and apologizing for everything. But Canada is so much more than stereotypes and snow. Its real story is a wild ride, ancient civilizations, lost explorers, epic battles, and a group of colonies forming a country like a new band. Before Europeans, millions lived here, complex societies with their own governments, trade, and deep ties to the land. The First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples shaped this place for thousands of years, thriving from the Arctic to the Pacific. Canada's history isn't an empty land waiting to be discovered, it's a layered story, with Indigenous peoples as the foundation. Understanding this is key to understanding Canada today, a country still figuring out its relationship with its own past. So grab a snack, and let's dive into the epic journey of the Great White North. Long before debates about pineapple on pizza, hundreds of distinct nations thrived across what's now Canada. The Haida carved monumental totem poles on the west coast. The Iroquois Confederacy built a political system that influenced the American Constitution. These societies were deeply connected to the land, with rich traditions, innovations like snowshoes and canoes, and vast trade networks. The Inuit mastered survival in the Arctic, while the Cree and Blackfoot hunted bison on the prairies. Each nation had its own language, customs, and worldview, a mosaic of cultures long before multiculturalism was a buzzword. The arrival of Europeans wasn't the beginning of history here, it was a loud interruption. The legacy of the First Nations is woven into Canada's place names, art, and ongoing conversations about justice and reconciliation. This isn't just a prologue, it's the main event that shaped everything that followed. The first Europeans to set foot in what we now call Canada? The Vikings, around the year 1000, landing on the rocky shores of Newfoundland. They built a small settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows, leaving behind traces of their presence. Then, just as mysteriously, they vanished for centuries, their story fading into legend. Fast forward several hundred years, European explorers, driven by dreams of finding new trade routes to Asia and untold riches, stumble onto the vast wild lands of Canada. In 1534, Jacques Cartier sails up the mighty St. Lawrence River, searching for gold and a shortcut to China. He finds neither, but he does encounter thriving indigenous communities. Cartier famously mishears Kanata, meaning village, and names the land Canada, a name that will stick. The French get serious about their new territory. In 1608, Samuel de Champlain founds Quebec City, forging crucial alliances with First Nations and launching the fur trade that will shape the region for generations. Young French coureurs des bois, adventurous woodsmen, paddle deep into the continent, learning from indigenous peoples, blending cultures, and building a new society in the St. Lawrence Valley. Beaver pelts become Europe's hottest fashion accessory, fueling a booming trade. Suddenly, Canada is the world's fur department store, with fortunes made and lost on the backs of these industrious animals. The French aren't building an empire of farms, they're trading, exploring, and creating a unique French-Canadian identity, shaped by both European ambition and indigenous knowledge. This era is adventurous, risky, and wildly profitable, but it also sows the seeds for future conflict. A major showdown is on the horizon. The groundwork is laid for a country defined by both indigenous and French roots, a blend of cultures that will shape Canada's identity for centuries to come. But soon, another power wants in, and the struggle for control of Canada is just beginning. New France is thriving, but Britain wants in on the action, eager to expand its influence. The French and British rivalry explodes in the 7 Years' War, a global conflict with North America as a key battleground. The decisive moment, 1759, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham outside Quebec City. The British win, both generals die, and New France's fate is sealed for good. By 1763, France cedes almost all its North American territory to Britain. Suddenly, 65,000 French-speaking Quebecers wake up as British subjects. Awkward, to say the least. The British choose compromise, letting the French keep their language, religion, and civil laws. This decision shapes Canada forever, creating a country with two founding European cultures. The foundation is set for a nation built on negotiation and coexistence, and the story is just getting started. After the British takeover, Canada is a patchwork of colonies, French in Quebec, English in Ontario, and independent-minded Maritimes. Each region has its own identity, customs, and ambitions, making unity a distant dream. The land is vast, the distances daunting, and the people divided by language, religion, and history. By the mid-1800s, political gridlock and the looming threat of American expansion pushed the colonies to unite. The fathers of Confederation, like John A. Macdonald and Georges-Étienne Cartier, see an opportunity to create something new, a nation built on cooperation, not conquest. They hammer out a deal for a federal system, debating late into the night, determined to find common ground despite their differences. The result is a delicate balance. Central power with provincial rights, a framework designed to keep the peace and allow for growth. July 1, 1867, the Dominion of Canada is born, starting with Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. No revolution, no dramatic battles or uprisings, just meetings, compromises, and a willingness to imagine a shared future, and a polite request to the Queen, who gives her royal blessing to this new experiment in nation-building. The new country is designed to be strong enough to survive next to the US, to resist outside pressures and internal divisions, and flexible enough for both French and English cultures to thrive. It's a political supergroup, ready to take the stage and shape the future of a continent. But Canada is still just a strip in the east. Its reach limited, its ambitions just beginning. There's a whole continent to unite, vast lands and diverse peoples waiting to be brought together. The next challenge, connecting sea to sea, forging links that will bind the country together. And that means building a railroad, a steel ribbon that will make Canada more than just an idea. It will make it a reality. Canada buys Rupert's Land from the Hudson's Bay Company in 1870, instantly becoming enormous, but mostly empty. The solution: build a transcontinental railway, promising British Columbia a connection to the rest of the country. The railroad is a monumental feat, built by thousands, including many Chinese laborers facing brutal conditions. Meanwhile, the Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 draws tens of thousands north, putting the Canadian wilderness on the map. New provinces, Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, join, and immigrants flood the prairies, turning them into the world's breadbasket. But this expansion comes at a steep cost. Indigenous peoples are pushed onto reserves, treaties are often unfair, and the bison nearly vanish. The westward push is a story of ambition and nation-building, but also of displacement and broken promises. Canada's growth is both triumphant and tragic. A legacy still felt today. The country is now coast to coast, but its identity is still evolving. Next, Canada steps onto the world stage. At the dawn of the 20th century, Canada, still closely tied to Britain, is thrust into the chaos of World War I. Over 600,000 Canadians answer the call to serve, forging a reputation for extraordinary bravery at battles like Vimy Ridge. The sacrifices and heroism of these soldiers become a defining moment in Canadian history, uniting the country in a new sense of national pride and identity. The war acts as a coming-of-age moment for Canada, pushing its leaders to demand an independent seat at the peace table in Paris. For the first time, Canada's voice is heard on the world stage, signaling a shift toward autonomy. This growing independence is cemented by the Statute of Westminster in 1931, which formally recognizes Canada as a self-governing nation within the British Commonwealth, able to make its own laws. When World War II erupts, Canada declares war independently for the first time, contributing massively to the Allied victory with troops, resources, and innovation. These global conflicts accelerate Canada's transformation from a British colony to a truly sovereign nation, forging a unique identity on the world stage. The final step comes in 1982 when Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau patriates the Constitution from Britain and enshrines the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, a landmark document. The Charter guarantees fundamental rights, freedom of speech, legal rights, and equality, ensuring that all Canadians, regardless of background, are protected under the law. In the decades that follow, post-war immigration transforms Canada into a vibrant, multicultural mosaic, welcoming people from every corner of the globe and enriching the nation's culture. Today, Canada is defined by its diversity, its charter, and its ongoing effort to reconcile with its past, especially with Indigenous peoples. The journey from First Nations land to an independent, multicultural nation is long, complex, and still unfolding, shaped by both triumphs and challenges. And so, the story of Canada, with all its achievements, struggles, and hopes for the future, is still being written, one chapter at a time.